And welcome to the Lifeburst Reviews Red for Vertex Diva. Let's get into it. Level 1 Signy. This is going to be from specifically the DMX deck. There'll be 3 cards in the DMX deck for the next 3. Cargo, Code Ride. Level 1, 3000 power. Enter abilities. You may put target card from your opponent's enter zone into the trash. If you do, enter charge 1. Or they enter charge 1 specifically, not you. That would be awesome if you did it. Its Lifeburst is, you may pay red if you do vanish target Signy on your opponent's field with power 8000 or less. Okay, so let's talk about why I'm about to rate Cargo as optimal. And why it seems like it should be either unplayable or viable. Enter charging your opponent is counterintuitive from when you are also getting rid of an enter from their enter zone. It also puts a huge risk on your head that if they play Xenocluster, you have just given them 3 free enter. And I don't mean like, oh, they lost 1 and they got 2 extra. I mean, they just gained 3 because you enter charged them as well. So, why is this card still optimal? And it's even got a Lifeburst that says, pay a color, and I famously hate Lifebursts that ask you to pay for them. Why is this still optimal? And the answer is, 1, not every deck can fit in Xenocluster, and it also has a keyword of may, which means that you just don't do it to the decks that have Xenoclusters in them, or they've used a Xenocluster and you can use this after the fact. But what it does do is it color screws your opponent. It does not enter screw them, but it does in fact color screw them. So if they're playing 3 color decks, like Nova, for example, runs only 6, or even a really greedy enter base like X, generally speaking, only runs like 6 to 8 black, and it's like they have to pay a lot of black things in there. This can screw them out of that color. Sometimes you're even willing to do this into a Xeno cluster because you know that you just need to get rid of their 3rd color, and it does not matter how many enter they have. If they can't use their Bang to Capo to full effect, you'll still win the game. And that is one of the reasons why Cargo's good. Yes, it's got a kind of deflating Lifeburst, but it comes up enough with this Lifeburst being good that you still are like, all right, I gotta pay 1. Paying 1 to kill something 8000 or less is basically just me being able to get a free Deafening Inferno off. So it's not awful, but it is the thing. It is a thing to think about. The next one we're going to be talking about from the box, the starter deck for DSX is going to be Goal Wing Code Excel. It's a level 3, 12,000 power team Deus Ex Machina. Its auto ability, it's a team auto ability, is at the beginning of your attack phase, if there are 2 or more cards in your opponent's Signy zone, and you've discarded 1 or more cards this turn, your opponent chooses a card randomly, or not random, chooses the card of their choice from their enter zone and puts it into the trash. It also has an action ability where you can pay red, colorless, and this Signy gains Double Crush till the end of turn. Is this card good? The answer is I actually have degraded it in my testing, and this card is, in my opinion, unplayable. I know, heresy, sacrilege. How could I say something that has the words Deus Ex Machina on it is bad? How dare I? This card is overcosted in pretty much every respect. The next card we're going to talk about, actually not the next card, the card following this one that we're going to talk about is just a better version of this period. And this card is just not very good. 3 enter to gain Double Crush is basically unplayable. I thought it might be slightly playable. It's really not. You are never in a world where you want to pay 3 enter to gain Double Crush. And Double Crush with no evasion on it, like no Assassin or something like that, and ability to open up a lane, is not good. The reason why, for example, why am I brain farting on its name? The Rise Signy that gains Double Crush as well, Nobunaga, is good, is because it can also open up a lane. Yes, it's better in decks that you can open up lanes already, or decks that you can give Assassin in, but I would just run Nobunaga over this every time without fail and feel fine about it. Especially because it's top-end red, and as we know, top-end red doesn't actually devote a lot of slots to top-end red. So, it's probably unplayable. I think you could probably play it in your deck, but I think you're better off not playing in this deck, which is literally the definition of unplayable for me. Devil Stinger, Phantom, Aquatic Beast. It's a level 3. It's, I think, our first red Aquatic Beast, too. 10,000 power. It's got a Lifeburst. Vanish target up to Signy on your opponent's field or draw a card. And its enter ability is discard up to 3 cards. Draw equal to the number of cards discarded this way. So this doesn't have the pump effect that Tobiel has, but is kind of superior to it aside from that pump effect. Tobiel asks that you discard 2 cards, and then you draw 2 cards. This one, you have a very flexible discardy cost, so if you only have 1 card in hand, which often happens with a red, then you this is a better card for it than that. However, I think one of the reasons why you would want to play Tobiel is the team pump, and it's a lot of team pump. I believe it's 5,000. So Devil Stinger falls a little flat in that. However, that's not to say that this isn't fine. This is fine. It's viable. You could use this as filler red. In fact, if you're looking for budget alternatives to certain cards that you might not have a hold of right now, or you might be like, yeah, I want to get these Lifeburst level 3 reds, but I don't quite have enough like money to get there, then this might be good filler for you to use instead. So I'm going to mark it as viable. I think I'm being a little generous with it, but it should be fine. Okay, Kentoki, Crimson General Queen. This card is awesome. It's so good. The reason why I've completely dropped Wingles out of the Gullwings out of the equation is because of Kentoki. You're better off just running 4 Kentoki. I know that it's tough when you've got 1 black Elrig, but the Team X, by the way, has 2 black Elrigs that you can down, and so you can play 2 of these a turn, and what's weird is you can only play 2 3s anyways. Kentoki just does everything you want in a red top end. Not only can it gain Assassin, which is just fantastic. Gaining Assassin on demand for 2 enter is the perfect amount, right? It would be better if it's 1, sure. It would be better if it's free, sure. But it is like the line where you want to be at, where it's still good. And you're just getting past walls. It's quite fantastic there. But the auto ability is cherry on the cake. At the beginning of your attack phase, if there's a soul on your field, which means that, yeah, you're only going to be playing this on X decks or Deus decks, then your opponent has to, and there's 2 or more cards there, your opponent has to choose a card and from their enter zone and put it in the trash. Yeah, you can't color screw them with this, but what it really does is it says, hey, nice Madoka clap, nice Lion disrespect. You're actually not going to be able to play it for all 3 of its abilities. And it lets you sneak in at least 1 damage where you wouldn't otherwise be able to do it. This one actually does top-end red. You start screwing them on enter. If you play 2 of these, you can get rid of 2 enter, and you really start messing with stuff. Just bear in mind that you need to have 4 enter in the opponent to do things, but it actually kind of nicely fits, and sometimes, you lance a lot, or sometimes you trigger a victory prior to it. So you can kind of inflate that number to get both of them off if you need to. Yeah, I've gushed about this enough. It's an incredible card that if you are playing an aggressive red deck, caveat, you also need to be playing some amount of black, this card's probably a 4 of in your deck. Let's talk about Alexandria, aka aka Kentoki, number 5 and 6. You never want to play more than 2 of these cards in your deck, but this sort of takes over the flex spot that existed for Tobiel, or I'm brain farting on a name right now, Kagasuchi, where it's just sort of like some of your utility top-end 3s that also can get pretty aggressive. This is also that spot, right? Like it's Lifeburst is choose 1 target, vanish target up Signy, or draw a card. So it's that life burst is really only okay. It's almost the least good life burst that you can play, and still it would be good. Its auto ability is pretty good. You can play it in a stompy deck, or you can play it in just an aggressive red deck. It works in both of those decks. Stompy decks generally gain access to Lancer, and just aggressive red decks try to gain access to Assassin. So you end up with whenever another Signy on your opponent or on your field gains Assassin, Lancer, or Double Crush, you may pay 2. If you do, you can gain this till end of turn. If you get the crazy Wombo combo where you can play this and also use X's ability to give certain things Assassin, and then also play Nobunaga to gain Double Crush, and then also use this to gain Double Crush, it's not crazy. That costs 4 enter to pull off. It needs a very it needs a very specific type of board state, but you almost always win those games. And they also let you win games that you wouldn't normally win by basically being like, I have 3 threats on the battlefield now, not just 2. So it is good. Generally speaking, you're always going to just play this with Kentoki. You're going to play Kentoki, give it Assassin, then you're going to copy the Assassin with Alexandria. So it is a very good card that I can see being played as a 1 of or a 2 of in red decks moving forward. We're going to call this one optimal. It's not staple because it depends on staple cards to be good. But yeah. Then we've got Gratia Crimson General. It's a level 1, 3,000 power. As long as you have a card in your Elrig trash, this Signy gains 4,000 power. Which means, generally speaking, you're going to probably only be able to do this turn 2, maybe, if you're really using your pieces aggressively. But it's going to be a turn 3, turn 4 ability mostly, and you want your level 1s to gain to be 7,000 power on turn 1 and turn 2. That's when it's most impactful. After that, they start becoming just level 1s that you put out there to fill out the ranks and also kind of wall a little bit. So this is not really going to see any play, I don't think. This is probably going to stay as unplayable just because it just doesn't do it as much as you would like it would. Okay, so Iwatushi, I didn't practice this one, is a viable card. It's not utterly amazing, but you can use it to fill out your ranks in your level 1s, and it won't hurt you. It's a level 1, 2,000 power. That 2,000 power is risky. You'd rather it be 3,000 for purposes of dodging certain types of effects. But you will also have the auto ability, which is at the beginning of your attack phase, you may pay a colorless. If you do, put target card from your opponent's enter zone that does not share a color with your opponent's Elrig into the trash. So this one actually does enter screw your opponent, but it's dependent on there being the enter that's in the enter zone not matching the center Elrig, which is actually pretty easy to play around on turn 1, which is where this would be most impactful. And then there are certain types of decks that just will never really allow you to have the option to be able to do this. In those scenarios, right, you are going to be kind of put off on this. I would play this in addition to Cargo as a 1 of or a 2 of, just to get more of that effect, a little bit of more of that redundancy, but it's not my number 1 go-to for enter burning. There's going to be some better cards later down the line at level 1, which can enter burn a little bit more efficiently and not miss as much. But for what it's worth, I do not mind paying 1 to kill off an opponent's enter in an aggressive deck. So this is viable for now. Okay, we have I literally just practiced this pronunciation and it's gone out of my head. I think it's called Celeberi, Phantom Demon. I want us to just start calling this Dragon with Bread, or even just Pan. I would love to call it Pan. Pawn, I guess is the actual right word, Pawn. This card's awesome. You're going to see a lot of this card being played in the future. This is going to be a staple card. It is very simple. Level 1, 5,000 power, Vanish target Signy on your opponent's field with 8,000 power or less. The reason Sita was not always amazing was that 3,000 power left it vulnerable to various removals, and it had a tough time killing certain level 1 Signy. Pawn does those things, right? It doesn't get removed as easy, and it also manages to kill off multicolored Signy, which is what Sita had trouble with. Its Lifeburst is really good, like really really good in an aggressive deck. So while Sita was not super played in the last set, it became way more played in the end of that set, and actually did help defeat Nova more often. This is just going to continue being that kind of case. You're going to want to probably pack anywhere from 2 to 4 of these in your average red build. We've got level 1 Corgi, Phantom Terrabeast. Its power is 2,000. Its constant abilities during your turn. This Signy gets 2,000 power for each of your center's Elrig levels. So if you have a level 1 Elrig, right, that's 4,000. If you have a level 2 Elrig, that's 6,000. If you have a level 3 center Elrig, then that would be 8,000. Its auto ability is, as long as this ability, its constant ability, as long as this thing is 8,000 or more, it gains the ability of whenever this attacks, you can discard a card. If you do, draw a card. So it gets some filtering, so a minor upside, very minor upside for being 8,000 or more. It has the ability of, you may pay red, the Lifeburst of, you may pay red colorless if you do Vanish target Signy on your opponent's field with power 12,000 or less. I hate that Lifeburst. 2 is just too much to be asking to pay for a Lifeburst. And then, like I said before, with level 1s, it all also kind of functions on here. You want your level 1s to be 7,000s on turn 1, 2, and this is really not hitting those numbers. I mean, it hits 6,000 on turn 2, which is kind of okay. And yes, I get that Terrabeasts have Team Pump in their stuff, but if I'm Team Pumping to gain the ability to filter a card is not such a huge upside that I'm looking to play this in my Team Pump deck. I'm going to go unplayable. I don't like this card at all. Alright, we've got Betty Ver, Crimson General. It's a level 2, power 5,000, has a constant ability. As long as this is in your center zone, it gains the following. Whenever this Signy attacks, choose one of the following. You can either A, 1, put a target card from your opponent's enter zone that does not share a color with the center Elrig into the trash, or 2, banish target Signy on the opponent's field with power 2,000 or less. This card is viable. I don't want to say it's optimal. You miss with that first choice more often than you'd like to admit. So it's not really super reliable. If that second one said 3,000 or less, I might have upgraded this to optimal, but it's still probably viable. Because it gives you enough flexibility on those early turns where they might not have a lot of enter. And the first one would miss that you would probably more likely hit the second one. So that's the idea of the card. I don't think it's all that great. I think it's viable. I think if you need just a little bit more enter burn in your aggro deck, you might consider playing this. Morax, on the other hand, is optimal. Optimal is the keyword. It's not staple. I think it does get power corrupt out very shortly after this set. But for now, I don't think I think it's quite a very good card. Its auto ability is whenever this Signy attacks. Sorry, it's a level 2, 3,000, by the way. So that's very low. But you're putting in an empty lane, generally speaking. So in red, so you can kind of ignore the fact that it's a 3,000 power. In practice, that's generally what you do. Whenever the Signy attacks, you can put if one or more of your cards were moved in your opponent's center, or sorry, your enter zone from the trash of their effects, then you get to enter charge 1. This is one of the more actually pretty easy ways for red to get enter, and red sometimes suffers from the fact that it wants so many Lancelot and Hera effects that it's running out of enter, it's running low on it, and Morax can kind of help stem that a little bit for you. The real reason you'd run it is because its Lifeburst is very, very good. Vanish target Signy on your opponent's field unless they pay 2. Now, I know what you're thinking. Paying 2 to not get a guaranteed Vanish, right, is something the opponent's going to be able to do more often than not. And the answer is it's 50-50. in practice, and I've done a lot of practice at this point with this card, whether it kills something is 50-50. But that's not really what matters here. What matters here is the alternative is that they need to pay enter. And you're only playing this in decks where you are enter burning them. If you are not playing this in a deck with any amount of enter burning, you should not be playing this card. Because you want it to be good on both ends. That's key. If you are enter burning your opponent, generally speaking, they won't have the enter to pay for it. If you are color screwing your opponent, which is something that X can do as well, generally speaking, they won't want to pay for it. If it's a turn 2 that you flip this, or turn 1, generally speaking, they don't want to pay for it because it's going to risk them not being able to grow next turn. If they pay for it and they're an aggressive deck, it probably saves you some amount of removal on your turn. So it puts them in a bad situation. Now again, Punisher effects that let your opponent choose what punishing effect they want to take are always going to be worse than straight up effects that you want to be playing. But there's enough going for this Punisher effect that is optimal currently. And I think that you're probably good to play some amount of this effect in specifically X, right? Would be what you want to be playing this in. You've got Yakitori, Code Art. I see it's Yakitori because she's got Yakitori now. I didn't see that until I saw it in the large version. It's a level 2, 5,000 power. Auto ability is whenever you use a spell, you may down this upped Signy. If you do, vanish target Signy with power 5,000 or less in your opponent's field. This has a similar problem that I said with the white Signy that draws you cards for using spells. Just, you're using spells to open up lanes, or you're using spells to draw cards. If you have Signys that then do those same effects by using a spell, it's less good because you don't necessarily need to double up on those effects. I'm going to put this down as unplayable. I don't think there's any real reason why you want to be running this. Yes, I see it's a free removal spell, but red has access to quite a bit of good removal that you don't want to run a card that might never be removal. Going to our level 3s, we've got Bathin, Crimson Evil. It's a demon. It's 10,000 power. Its action is once a turn, you can pay a colorless. Put another demon on your field into the trash. Vanish target Signy on your opponent's field with power 8,000 or less. Okay, so really what you should be reading this is it allows you to convert any Signy, right? Because you're probably playing a ton of demons with this if you're going to be playing in the best version of the deck possible. It allows you to convert any of your Signy into removal. And that is not terrible. It's pretty good in an aggressive deck. Red also does this sacrifice motif that demons sometimes like, so it has reasons to be played there as well. I'm going to put it down as viable strictly because it allows you to do something in a tribe that kind of wants those things, but it's not overwhelmingly good. So literally the fact that it could create something for an interesting thing for a tribe, an interesting synergy for that tribe, bumps it up from unplayable to viable. But I wouldn't be playing this in pretty much any other deck. I wouldn't actively be trying to find a reason to play this either. We've got Cancer Natural Planet. It is a level 3 Signy with 10,000 power. Its enter abilities, you can discard 2 level 1 Signy, vanish target Signy on your opponent's field with power 12,000 or less. It is viable in the fact that it is a free way to get rid of level 12,000s or less, and red struggles with that at their top end. But if you're playing more than just red, maybe you're pairing it with white or black, you should be able to either bounce or assassin in a way that you don't need to play this. So I'm going to put it down as low viable as possible, because there's a world where you're playing, because green should be able to remove things like this too. The only world where you want to be playing this is maybe pairing it with blue, because you're struggling for removal at that front end, but I don't know. It's not as amazing as yeah, you could draw some extra cards on blue too and then use that as discard fodder. So really that's the only niche case scenario that I want to be using that All right, our last one is Roaring Sunshine. Again, this is a red spell, even though it's got a multicolored cost, so you can play this in non-white decks. Our abilities are as follows. Vanish target Signy on your opponent's field. Look at the top 3 cards of your deck. Add 1 from among them to your hand and put the rest on the bottom in any order. It's also got the Lifeburst of Vanish target Signy on the opponent's field with power 5,000 or less. Or you can do target Signy on your opponent's field gains this Signy can't attack till end of turn. And it has the cost of red, white, colorless. 3 enter to draw a card and remove a Signy is probably 1 more than I want to pay. So it's unplayable in that regards. In a lot of cases, you can just play a Signy that removes an opponent's Signy, and it does basically the same thing this does, because you still get to quote-unquote keep the card after you use it, and Roaring Sunshine gives you a card to replace itself. Its Lifeburst is basically just you can take both of those and mush them into one, which says stop attacking this turn. So that's a okay defensive Lifeburst. I'm going to put this down as unplayable. I don't see a world where I'm trying to actively play this. And that's it. Tell me what you guys think of red in this set. Leave comments down below. Thank you.